What is up, guys? We've got another deck profile here today, and today we're going to do one of my favourite decks of all time, which is Fluffals, and we'll get right into it. We'll start with 3 Fluffle Dogs. If Fluffle Dog wins normal special summoned, you can add 1 Edgem Saber or Fluffle from your deck to your hand. You can use the effect once per turn. He is basically the search of the deck. Get him out first turn. You're able to find your Edgem if you need one, or a Fluffle monster if needed. Play 3 Fluffle Bear. He's basically just a ditch card because it's effect. Because you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard to set 1 Toy Vendor on your field, which means you've got Toy Vendor on the field, which is great. It's a great advantage, especially for this deck. And also, if he's on your field, if you play him in attack mode, you get the effect Toy Vendor, you summon another Fluffle Bear. You can ditch him to get Polymerization to your hand, which is really good as well. Saves you having to try and get one as well. So, 3 Sheep. Sheep's effect's really good because if you've got a Fluff on the field and this is in your hand, you can special as many. If you've got all 3 in your hand, say, you can special all 3 to the field. And also you can bounce a Fluffle back to your hand and special an Edgem Saber from your hand or graveyard. Or Edgem Saber, just an Edgem from your hand or graveyard to the field. Which is really good. 3 Mouse. Fluffle Mouse's effect when it's normal summoned on your main phase. You can special summon the other 2 copies, which is why I run 3. Get 1 on the field, you've got another 2 on the field. That gives you 3 monsters. If you've got Edgem and a Polymerization in your hand, you're basically set to go for a fusion play. So that's really good. I play 1 Fluffle Owl. A lot of people play this at 2. I like it at 1. It's just because it's not the strongest, and it's basically just a usage to get Polymerization because it's effect. So you special normal summon it, you get to add a Polymerization at hand. That's really all I use it for. I don't really use its pay effect, where you pay 500 to fusion summon, in case you don't have a Polymerization left. I don't really use it, because by the time this card is on the field, I just use it as a fusion material as well, so it's not too bad. I play 2 Fluffle Wings. Fluffle Wings is just basically a ditch card for Toy Vendor, because when this card's in the graveyard, as long as I've got another Fluffle in the graveyard, I just banish both those cards to draw a card, and I can also destroy Toy Vendor to draw another card, plus play off Toy Vendor's destroying effect, which you'll learn about in a wee bit. But yeah, it's basically just a ditch card as well, so it's not much as a use monster. And 1 Fluffle Rabbit, just as long as when this card sits in the graveyard for a fusion summon, I can add an Edgem Saber or Fluffle monster back to my hand from the graveyard. Yep. Just double checking the effect there. And yeah, so it's basically just a way to get another, maybe a dog or a bear back to my hand just to keep on my plays. We'll go into the Edgems now. I play 3 Edgem Saber. I don't really like that version on the front because it annoys the camera, so I'll do that. Edgem Saber's effect, when it's in the graveyard, I can place 1 of the cards in my hand back to the top of my deck, and then special summon this in defense mode. So it's kind of good if you've got no monsters and the card in your hand you don't need for until next turn. So it's basically just a card as well. Especially if you've got spares in your hand, you can just put it back and then just use it to get this back in the field for fusion play, maybe. 3 Edgem Chain, one of the most important Edgem cards in the deck, because when this card declares attack, it can add itself from your deck to the hand, which is really good. Plus, if this card hits the graveyard, you get to add a Frightfur card from deck to hand. So basically, you use this for a ditch card as well, just to get Frightfur fusion from your deck to your hand, which is really good as well and really needed in this deck. And I play 1 Edgem Saw, just so I can get a couple of draws as well. I get rid of Fluffle to the graveyard to get 2 cards, which is really good, because if any of these monsters are in the graveyard, I can start fusion summoning with Frightfur fusion, which is really good. And also, this is the only one that makes Frightfur Leo, I think it is, yeah, Frightfur Leo. So you use basically just another fusion monster as well. So that's all the monsters when they're going to the spells. So we'll start with main card of Polymerization. I think everyone should know if they're playing this game, should know what Polymerization is, but I'll just explain it just in case. Basically, fusion materials in your hand or on the field, just fuse and make fusion monsters. Real simple, real good. Roll off fusion. Another main card is Frightfur Fusion. For this deck, fusion summon 1 Frightfur Fusion monster by banishing monsters from my graveyard. So like I said, if I use Toy Vendor or Saw's effect, stuff like that, anything that's in the graveyard, I use this and I can banish the materials from my side of the field or the graveyard to special summon Fusion Monster, which is really good for this deck because it all surrounds Fusion. Toy Vendor. Toy Vendor's effect is when this is face up on the field, you discard one card and draw a card. If the card that you drew was a Fluffal Monster, then you can special summon a Fluffal Monster from your hand. It doesn't have to be the one you drew. If not, the card goes to the graveyard, so sometimes it can benefit if it's Edge of Chain, because if it goes to the graveyard, you get the Frightful Fusion, and that means you're kind of next place, so you're not missing out. And also, when this card's destroyed and sent to the graveyard, this card itself, you get to add an Edge of Saber or a Fluffal Monster from deck to hand. So it's basically, when this card's sent to the graveyard, you get another Fluffal Dogs effect, which is really good because that means you get at least 6. Or actually, it's 6. I play 2 Mystical Space Typhoons just in case there's back row that this deck has to compete with, which isn't too bad. It's just so I can get rid of cards, even if it's just a Mirror Force, just to kind of save myself. I also use it on Toy Vendor just so I can get the play if I really need a card at that time. But this is because I also can't afford any more Twin Twisters, so I use these. And 1 Dark Hole, just so if I have no plays, I can go into a play, I need more monsters in the graveyard. Even that, I can just do Dark Hole, send them out to the graveyard, and then Frightful Fusion. So it's just a wee bit of destruction as well. So that's all the spells. So we'll get them in the way. Trap cards. We've got 3 Fusion Reserve. This card is really good because as long as I've got a monster in the graveyard that can be used for a fusion summon, I can use this card. So basically, I reveal a fusion monster from my extra deck, and I get to add a fusion material, not from the graveyard, from the deck to hand, and a polymerization in the graveyard. So basically, I flip this, get a fusion material monster. I don't even need to have the polymerization in the graveyard for this, so it just makes it a wee bit easier to get another fusion material. 1 Mirror Force, just to defend myself really, because I don't really want to be sitting there with no defense just in case they block off the effects. I don't want to be sitting there going, I have no way of stopping this. I want to have, just even if it's this, just to go, no. 1 Horn of Heaven, it's a really good card, especially with if I have to face a wee bit better deck than mine. I can just even stop 1 summoning, which is really good. Yep. And 1 Fright for March. This is a really good card for the deck, but I only play it 1 because it's really cloggy at other than 1. So if my fusion monsters are going to get targeted by Spell Trap or Monster Effect, I flip this and it defends the monster and destroys the card. And I can also, as a bonus, I can special summon 1 level 8 or higher Frightful Monster. So I basically just go into Chimera or even Sabertooth just for the turn. It may be destroyed or banished. Banished at the end of the turn, but it really can be game if I use this and I have 1 final attack to go for. So that's the main deck. We'll have a look at the extra deck now. So I play 1 Cowboy just because it's effect. In defense mode, ditch a material, just take off 800 life points, do it kind of game card as well, so I use it for game. Number 82, Heartland Draco, a really good card for this deck because Fluffal Dog is level 4. You make this, as long as you've got Toy Vendor on the field, they basically can't target this card, which saves it. Plus, with 2 materials, I can just detach and attack them directly. So that's 2,000, that's 4,000, that's half their life points gone in 2 turns, which is really good. 1 Dart Rebellion XYZ Dragon, another really good card for this deck because not all Fluffal monsters are strong. And if I can't get a fusion play, I want to go into at least an XYZ play just to defend myself. So I'll use this just so I can power him up to defend myself till I can get a better play. I play 3 Fright for Wolf. This card's really good as long as you've got a lot of material for it because its effect is it gains an extra attack for each fusion material. So if I fuse with say 7 cards, that's 7 attacks for Fright for Wolf, and a lot of people play this for game, and so that is a really good card for game, especially first turn, your opponent's got nothing to do, you've got polymerization, and at least 4 fusion materials in your hand, you've basically won the game as long as they can't do anything. I play 1 Fright for Bear. Fright for Bears are really cool. especially if I'm fighting say a deck that requires, like Super Heavy Samurai for instance, if I take out one of their weaker monsters, instead of going to the graveyard where they can reuse it, I get to take that monster and equip it to this card and gain 1,000 attack points for each card. So Frightful Bear is one of those cards that if you're taking in their monsters, you're going to gain attack points for this guy to fight bigger monsters, which is really cool. One Frightful Leo, I don't really get him out that often. I get him out if I have to get him out, but I don't like to get him out because he's not the greatest. For his effect is I can pop a card on my opponent's side of the field, and once I do that, they take damage equal to the attack points, which is a really good effect, but the downside, this card can't attack directly. So sometimes I'll think, well, is it worth me popping their monster to deal them with, say, 1,000 points of damage, or would I rather attack with something else and do 2,400 points of damage? So it's one of those, like, well, I want that moves. It's not here or there for me. I play 2 Frightful Sheep. Its effect is, God, it annoys people to hell, because it can be on when this card attacks or attacking. It can be targeted by card effects. So a lot of folk will think, oh, he's playing Frightful Sheep. I can use Mirror Force, Quaking Mirror Force. It doesn't target anything that targets this card. Just doesn't work when it attacks, which is really good. And also, once per turn, if this card's sent to the graveyard, I can bring it back from the graveyard and plus 800 to its attack. So a lot of people will think, alright, I'll attack it for 2,000, that's it gone. It'll come back at 2,800, and they'll think, alright, now I can now take you out. So it's one of those really good fusion cards that I go into first turn if I can.
I said if you haven't screenshotted you already.
I've got 2 Frightful Tiger. Don't really play him more. Don't want to play him any more at 2. Don't want to play him at 1 because it's just you want him out. His effect's really good for each fusion material. It's like Wolf. For each fusion material, instead of gaining extra attacks, it pops cards. So if you're going first turn, if you're going second, sorry, and your opponent's got a full field out, and you're able to get Frightful Tiger out, and you're able to get, say, 4 cards fusioned, that's 4 cards off their field that they might need for their play. So it's just really good. Plus, for each Fluffal and Frightful monster in the field, all of them gain 300, which is really good. So if I've got Wolf, Sheep, and this guy out, it's going to be quite a power boost for each of them, which is really good. Play 2 Frightful Sabertooth. I wouldn't play it anymore because you're only allowed. Oh no, that's Tiger. You're allowed more than one of these on the field, but Tiger you're only allowed one on the field at a time. This card's really good because when this card's special summoned, if you use Polymerization for this, which is a better effect rather than Frightful Fusion, if you use Polymerization even with Tiger, you can then bring back the Frightful monster that you use to fusion summon this, which is really good because it means if you use Tiger, for example, if I use Tiger, with his 300 plus effect and Frightful Sabertooth gains 400 or plus his 400 to each of them for each Frightful monster, it's a lot of power boost for both of them in the field. Plus, with this guy, if I use 3 or more materials, he can't be destroyed by battle or card effect, so which means not a lot of things can get over him unless you've got Dark Hole or Geki, and then he's going to be sitting in the field annoying people. And finally, Frightful Chimera, one of my favourite Frightful cards, just because of how crazy it looks on the field. When this card's on the field, if it destroys an opponent's monster, I get that monster to my side of the field with half its attack points, which is really cool. And this card gains 300 for each monster on my side of the field. So if my opponent's say playing Ghost Tricks, and I'm able to take out one of his monsters, I'm going to take that monster and put it on my side of the field rather than sit in his graveyard, which winds people up. So then, it's really funny to see.
Oh no, he got me.
And also, I'm just trying to see what else he does. I think that's it, yep. So there you go, guys. That's my Fluffal deck. Please like and subscribe to the channel. And if you've got any comments about the videos, any feedback, please put it in the comments down below. Thanks, guys. See you later.